Hello guys, welcome to another review. I'm gonna review The Witcher today. The new Witcher series has come out on Netflix recently, a couple of days ago. I know I'm a little late. I've been watching it, but I haven't been binging as like so many people have just binged all the episodes at once. That's kind of I mean, not unexpected, but I don't binge, so I'm a little bit late with this review, but it is what it is. So I'm gonna do like a little bit shorter review today. Just I'm gonna talk about the first three episodes of The Witchers, the ones that I've seen so far. I watched the third one last night. I'm not gonna go into too many details about it. I'm just gonna give my impressions of the overall story, the look, all that stuff. It's not gonna be a long video, I hope, but who knows? I don't know. So once I get talking, who knows what can happen. So yeah, basically how the show looks. I like some of the characters look good. Some of the characters weren't like I expected. I guess I had, as many people did, have had some preconceptions because of the video game. But yeah, I think the characters are okay. I'm not gonna single out any characters that I like or don't like. It's not such a big deal. I'm gonna take them as they are and try to enjoy the show on its own, not connected to the video games, of course. Yeah, I do have to mention Henry Cavill really did a great job as Geralt. Like, he did kind of channel the video game Geralt a little bit, like he was expected to do. But of course I also know that he is a huge fan of the Witcher games, so probably that influenced him a little bit. But yeah, the voice, he really did good. Basically, he's doing an impression of the video game voice, but it was great. I really enjoyed his performance. He was really good at it. The sets looked really good. Some did look a couple of places a little bit cheap, but overall they were really good. They look beautiful. Like some of them, many of them, Game of Thrones quality. So I didn't have a problem with that. The CGI too, in some places it looked great. In some places I didn't quite feel it, but yeah, I'm not gonna I don't care that much about that stuff. So if it looks great, awesome. If it looks a little bit less than great, I'm not gonna be bothered too much about it. Only thing that I was bothered, and I'm guessing many of you were bothered by, is the Nilfgaard armor. But we knew about that. We already seen the pictures. Yeah, like they look like, I don't know, they look basically like a dildo or something. I don't know, with all these wrinkles. You can't see it very well in this picture, but yeah, it does look pretty freaking stupid. They did the little Nilfgaard insignia on the chest there. That looks okay. The helmets are kind of weird. So yeah, but yeah, I'm not gonna be bothered too much about that. Sintra armor, normal medieval armor, kind of generic. Not a big deal. But yeah, that's like a little bit of the negatives, but I'm not really bothered by most of that. The story. I was kind of even before I started watching The Witcher, I was kind of thinking, how can they do this story? Like, how can they transfer? Especially, they were planning to follow the books. The first two books, I think, were basically just short stories about Geralt just running around and meeting some monsters, and dealing with some philosophical issues and stuff like that. It doesn't transfer well to show like this. I mean, it might have transferred well if it were made in the 80s or 90s or something, but nowadays the way the shows are done, I was kind of worried about that. And they did a pretty good job. I mean, they did cut down Geralt's stories to a little bit of a, not a side, not definitely not a side story, but one of the three main stories. And they did increase Ciri's and Yennefer's story a little bit more. We did get to see a bit of backstory for Yennefer and a little bit of more backstory for Ciri. I don't think either of those were in the books, but I might be mistaken. Uh, at least I don't remember, especially Yennefer's story. I think there were hints and there were like some mentions of Yennefer's backstory, but not nowhere near as detailed as it was shown in here. But yeah, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed like a little bit of her own struggles as she was like you know like hunchback basically, and she had those issues to deal with, and that's her kind of transition to the Yennefer we know in the books, was pretty cool. I liked it. I liked it. I liked the way they did that. Same thing with Siri. Not too much interesting stuff with Siri, but Siri's part for me served a lot as like the political climate. We learned about like Nilfgaard. We learned about Sintra. We learned about like the major players that are gonna be talked about in those stories. So yeah, and of course a little bit of Ciri's personal history. Her grandmother, Queen Calanthe, finally appeared because we only in the books, in the games, we only heard about her from people talking about those characters and like mentions and stuff like that. So yeah, her Ciri story, yeah, her escape and her um, you know, a little bit of like a little bit boring part between not boring. They did kind of show chaos of war and her escape and her like that one character that's an elf turned out to be an elf helping her, and she was then came to a noble family who hated Calanthe, all that stuff, and then finally like yeah, their slaughter basically. It had to be shown. It wasn't the most interesting part of the show, but it had to be shown because we need to know about Ciri. She's gonna be a major, most important character in the future. Witcher stories, yeah. We have like specific stories of Renfri and Stregobor. Like the Renfri is Stregobor basically talked about how she is like some child of like some monster or something like that, and he tried to kill her. She escaped, and she now wants to kill him. So we still don't know if that's true, if she was actually a monster, or if Stregobor basically made her vindictive and made by kind of destroying her life made her like that. But yeah, it was an interesting story, and of course, at the end, Witcher is forced to kill Renfri and her people. Stregobor turns the people against him. He gets the nickname Butcher of Blaviken. Yeah, it was okay. That was like, again, pretty much as far as it's been a while since I read the story, but I think it was mostly on point. Second story, Witcher story, the Devil. I don't remember. I think there was much more running around the fields with that devil or Sylvan guy, and it was kind of weird. But yeah, that part, yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of, even in the story itself. But yeah, then we had like the elves and political situation. Again, this also served some type of lore building, because we learned about the elves, we learned about Folka's rebellion, we learned about all that stuff that we will need to understand the overall uh, you know political situation, because that's very important in this series. Third story was the Strega. It was also adapted all right. I don't remember again the details, if it was much the same or if they changed. I think they might have changed something. I don't know if Triss was actually in the story of the Strega or not. I think she might have been put in there just to introduce the character because she is an important character, but I don't think she was in any of the stories for original stories. So yeah, I think they added Triss to this story. In this story, we got to meet Triss. We got to meet King Foltest, which he would be kind of important. I don't know. I don't know if he will be very important, but I think in the games that he is important. In the books, yeah, he is mentioned, but not that much. He's the king of Temeria. And of course, in second story we meet Dandelion. That's super important, of course. What I liked also about these, like this combination of Yennefer's and Ciri's and Geralt's stories, was that each episode had kind of like a theme that they kind of maybe it was a little bit obvious, but it was cool because they needed to kind of connect those completely different elements together, and each story had a theme, so I like that. Yeah, I talked about the lore. It is a bit confusing, so definitely the lore of the show is confusing. We have a lot of factions, a lot of events, historical, a lot of political, turmoil and stuff like that, and it does get confusing even for like people who play the games and read the books like I have. It does get very confusing for me too. I can imagine somebody who's just like a casual viewer and who just like watching the story for the first time, like my friend who watched with me the first two episodes. We watched together and he was kind of confused. I did had to have to explain a bunch of things to him. But even more, what might be even more confusing would probably be the timeline. So definitely the timeline of the story is all over the place because we have Yennefer's story. Yennefer's story basically when she became a sorceress probably happened around 70 years, I think, so around 70 years before Ciri escaped from Sintra, and Ciri's escape for Sintra probably happened a little bit, or at least a couple of years after most of the Geralt stories from The Last Wish, because Geralt still hasn't met. I think Geralt is supposed to meet Yennefer before he ever finds Ciri. So I don't know how they're gonna like connect all of that. This first season probably will be the hardest to connect, all the different storylines and all the different timelines together. But once they get to once they start adapting the novels, that shouldn't be much of a problem. Then it should be mostly the same timeline as far as I remember. It shouldn't be a huge issue. But the thing is, from this show, we don't really get that these are different timelines. It kind of feels like everything is happening at the same time. So maybe that's what they're gonna do. Maybe like we have like Yennefer becoming a sorceress. Is it gonna happen? Did this happen at the same time as I don't know, Ciri escaping from Sintra, or not? But I think not. And it doesn't, because definitely I remember during this scene with Yennefer, we have King Foltest as a young kid. So King Foltest, who appeared in the third episode as the father of the Striga, because of course we have to have incest in this, in these shows. Game of Thrones influence, I guess. I'm kidding. No, not Game of Thrones influence, because it was in the books too, I think. King Foltest, of course, had a baby with his sister, and it became a monster because he was cursed. But in this Yennefer storyline, King Foltest is a kid, and his sister Ada, they're both kids, and they're in the court. So we do notice that it is some years before the events of Geralt's storyline, where he saves the Striga. So yeah, that's yeah. So that does give some indication, but if you're not paying attention as a viewer, as a casual viewer especially, probably you won't you know you won't notice when all of this stuff is happening. But yeah, that's it. Those are my comments. I mainly wanted to talk about that stuff. But overall, I enjoyed the show. It definitely wasn't boring. It was interesting. It was fun. I'm gonna keep watching, and I might talk about it more in the future when I watch 2 or 3 more episodes. So yeah, uh, thank you for listening. Have a great day, guys, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye bye.